It was hectic. Oh, you guys, the light is in and out. Bear with pulling up the notes. I didn't, you know, it's not about any of that. It's not about any of that. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is gonna be my December reading wrap up. Happy New Year. It is now, hold on, it's already the 12th of January as I'm filming this, but Happy New Year. I've still got that New Year feeling and I'm trying to hold on to it. I don't know why, but I really do feel like 2020 is gonna be a banging year. But this video isn't about my 2020 reading goals and whatever. It is about the books that I read in December. And as I'm sure you can see from the title, December was my best reading month ever. Not in terms of like what I read, but how much I read. I won't front. A lot of the books that I read were short stories like Agatha Raisin and Agatha Christie and all of that. But I still read them. It still counts. Let's get into it, I guess. So I finally, after like 6 years of trying, managed to read 52 books in a year. So pats on the back for me. It was hectic. Oh, you guys. Okay, that's gonna happen a lot. As I was saying, I finally managed to read 52 books, which was just, honestly, I was reading right up until the last minute as well, but it doesn't matter because I did it. I managed it. Should we get into the books that I read? I do want to do a video reflecting on my 2019 reading wise, and I'll also do a video talking about what I want to do in 2020 reading wise. So hopefully I can get that content filmed sooner rather than later. But anyway, as I've said a million times, let's actually talk about the books I read in December. A lot of the books that I read were audiobooks, so I don't have physical copies of them, obviously. And I don't have that fancy put it on the screen technology. So the first book that I finished in December was called Whistle in the Dark by Emma Healy. Yes, it was, you know, I had to verify that I right. Whistle in the Dark is by the same author who wrote Elizabeth is Missing, which is a book I actually do own. And the BBC did adapt it recently into a TV drama, which I haven't watched yet, which is also irrelevant. So the book opens with Jen and her husband Hugh having been told that their daughter's been found because she went missing for a bit and then she just came back. Not came back, but rather she was discovered. The book basically follows what happens next in the time that Lana comes back. That's her daughter's name, by the way. Jen is trying to find out what's happened, where she's been, if she's been hurt or whatever. That's basically it. I know that synopsis was kind of lacking, but this book was just not good, in my opinion. I really did not like it. I felt like after all of it, I didn't see what the point was, you know? Maybe it just missed me entirely, but I just kind of felt like I had wasted my time. It just wasn't interesting or captivating or anything. I read it because I was trying to finish the challenge, otherwise I would have DNF'd it and just been done with it. I listened to the audiobook for this, right? And the voice that the narrator put on for Lana was just really irritating. She was really irritating. I just shouldn't have finished the book because it just was not for me. I didn't have any expectations, so I wouldn't consider it a disappointing read in that sense. But it was just like, why am I reading this? I feel like the book started off kind of promising and then just lost me so quickly. This weather. I think it's actually started raining. I might have to pause and come back. Now there's an eyelash in my eye. Can I like catch a break? Right. Okay, so the weather is all over the gaff today, but we're back. And what was I saying about Whistle in the Dark? I felt like it started off well, you know, it was interesting in the beginning, like where's she been, what's happened to her kind of thing. But then as the novel goes on and we don't really get any answers until the like very end, I just kind of felt like I was reading it. Obviously I was reading it to find out, you know, what had happened to Lana, but everything in between just kind of felt not irrelevant, but like just mundane. I don't know, it was just really, it just wasn't interesting. It didn't captivate me like in the slightest. Yeah man, it just wasn't it. It just wasn't it. Let's move on to the next one. So the next two books that I read were books by Harper Lynn, who writes, I guess, what's considered Chiclets. They were like murder mystery type stories. See, look at this weather. Look what it's trying to do to me. I have to get up every 3 seconds to adjust the light and I can't. I mean, I can, but I don't want to. The first first book that I read by Harper Lee was called Cappuccinos, Coffee and a Corpse, and then the second one was called Tea, Tiramisu and Tough Guys. Sort of cheesy-ish titles. The main character's name is Francesca, and in the first book she's just moved back to the town that she grew up in, which is like a typical small American town type of thing. She's taking over her mum's business because her mum's just died. She's walking home one day when she comes across the corpse of her neighbour, Mr. Cardozi, who is also the dad of a guy she went to school with. So the two of them like link up, Francesca and Matty, to try and solve his dad's murder. And it's the usual thing of the police saying, you know, don't get involved, we'll sort it out. In these kind of stories they never listen in it. So off they go trying to find this killer, and things ensue, I guess. It's an amazing book, but it was a quick, fast read. It was cute. I listened to the audiobook for this as well, and the Tea, Tiramisu and Tough Guys one. They were right, you know, they were good. I don't have anything really to say about them. They were good books. I like them. So last month I read quite a few Agatha Christie adaptations that were done by the BBC. They were all like 27, 28 minutes long, which is why I just, you know, I just hit those. So I read In a Glass Darkly, The Dressmaker's Doll, Philomel Cottage, Swan Song and The Hound of Death. They had full casts and like sound effects and everything. They were alright, you know. I gave them all 2 stars. They weren't that interesting, but hey, they helped me take a few things off, you know. If you want more detail on them, I'm afraid this video is not, it's not the place. Moving on. What else did she read? This one I do have a physical copy of. I finally finished Children, you can't even see it. After all of that, I finally finished Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. I've actually done a dedicated video talking about this book, so look out for that as well. It should hopefully be out soon. I don't know. So Children of Blood and Bone is about our main character Zelly and her quest to return magic to Orisha. When she's offered the chance to bring magic back to her people, but she thought this day would never come, she's like on it like a car bonnet. No. There was a raid 9 years ago, and in it the king's men killed all the magi and killed magic with them. Zelly and a bunch of others are descendants of the magi. You start out as a diviner and become a magi. How does one give a good book synopsis? Still figuring that out. So one day she bumps into, or more accurately I guess, is run into by the queen's daughter. No, that's, well, she is the queen's daughter, but anyway, one day Zelly and Amari, who is the king's daughter, run into each other. I think the blurb sums it up perfectly, really. They killed my mother, they took our magic, they tried to bury us, now we rise. You guys. Yeah, so that basically sums it up. 9 years ago there was a raid in which Zelly's mum was killed and magic died that day as well. And now she's basically been offered the chance to bring magic back to her people, and she can't turn it down because she never thought this day would come, you know. So along with her brother Zayn and Princess Amari, she's off to try and bring magic back to the people. But obviously the monarchy can't have that. So Amari's brother, I've forgotten his name. Why have I forgotten his name? Anan. Amari's brother's called Anan, and he's in pursuit of them along with an army of the king's men. And yeah, love this book, you guys. This book means so much for so many people. It wasn't a 5-star read, it was more of a 4-star read for me, for reasons I explain in the video that I did. Even with that, it's such an important book. Like, 4 stars is not a bad rating in my opinion. The fact that it is a West African inspired fantasy novel just blows my mind. This book had everybody talking within the booktube community and beyond. I'm pretty sure it was a New York Times bestseller, and it won one of the Goodreads awards as well in 2018. Definitely worth reading. I'm not much of a fantasy reader. I've read The Hunger Games, which I don't know if that technically counts as fantasy. I think it's more dystopian. There was just no question that I had to read this book. So very glad I did. So very glad that I did. She's a thick one, so it took me some time. Read this book if you haven't already. I'm gonna read Virtue. I always get it backwards. It's either Children of Vengeance and Virtue or Children of Virtue and Vengeance, but either way that is the sequel to this bad boy, and I will hopefully be reading that this year. Check it out, support Black authors. I read a book by Mary Higgins Clark. Two books. I actually read 2 books by Mary Higgins Clark. The first one was A Cry in the Night. I made a ton of notes on this book, I remember, because it was just so weird to me. It was so weird. A Cry in the Night is about a woman who, she works in an art gallery where she meets this guy who's an artist that is having a show or an exhibition in the gallery that she works at. She's a single mum of 2. She's divorced, and this guy that she meets at work that she's like working with comes into her life, and it's just a bit of a shit show. To be honest, it's really hectic the way he comes into her life and just changes it up. Is really quite bizarre. As I was listening to it, I was just like, you cannot be serious. But I've still enjoyed it. So much of it was weird, so weird. Like, girl, this man is not well. Do you know what I mean? It was like a You type of thing. I haven't even watched You properly. I've just started that, so yeah. Let me just bring up these notes that I made. So the main character's name is Jenny, and Eric is the guy that is the artist that her gallery is representing. So as I said, Jenny is a divorcee, and Eric is this rich artist guy who is like, who can show her a new way of life or whatever, and her ex-husband, he really ain't nothing to write home about. Eric was just a madman from the jump. He was just absurd to me, and I don't know why she just happily went along with all of this madness that this guy was doing, but she could have saved herself a lot of heartache, let me tell you. There's a scene in the very beginning of the book where, I'm not even joking, it's the same day that they've met. They just met. He goes off on her. He's followed her home, mind you. And then he goes off on her for giving money to her ex. Because this guy's invited himself around for dinner, right? And he's cooking as well. Like he just, you know, this is his home. And her ex shows up and wants some money. And basically, long story short, she gives him money. And then he's like, why are you doing that? And then, because he also touched the meatloaf, Eric threw the meatloaf in the bin. He threw the meatloaf in the bin because her ex-husband had touched it. And he was like, the kids are not eating this or whatever. Like, dude, we met 20 minutes ago. What are you doing? So weird. So weird. And before all of this as well, he was judging her for basically being a working mum. Because when she was explaining how her grandma used to look after the girls for her when she was at work, but she'd recently died, he was just kind of like, why are you working? Like, what? Mate, this book was written a long time ago. I'm not sure when, let me check. It first came out in 1982, and you can kind of tell because parts of it are just so ridiculous. Like, come off it. I'm gonna tell you about this whole book. I really doubt it's on a lot of people's TBRs, but if you don't want to know anything about it, you can skip this whole section if you want. They get together, and he starts sending limos for her, like to take her everywhere. He was so creepy. The way he embedded himself in her life and the girls' lives, it was weird. It made me really uneasy. Like, I disliked him immediately. The way he immediately disliked her ex was just insane. Her ex was not it, but it was still weird. Like, calm down, we just met, dude. You can't hate my ex-husband more than I do, weirdo. And he proposed to her within a week, and she said yes. What's wrong with you? He even wanted to adopt her kids. We've all known each other for 1 week. Just a little over 5 working days. This doesn't make sense, honey. When they got married after a month, like, make it make sense. And this is a direct quote, right? He said, I hate that another man ever touched you. And she's not running. Why aren't you running? Like, why aren't you running? And he gave her ex-husband $2,000 to sign the adoption papers as well, because I think he was a drug addict or an alcoholic or something. He basically bought the kids off of him. And whilst all of this is happening, she's just kind of like, where have you been all my life? She's just falling in love with this man. And it doesn't make sense. Then Jenny moves into the house that he's lived in his whole life with her 2 daughters, and the house is on acres and acres of land and is just sort of away from everything. Within seconds of them being there, she's worried about how she spoke to another guy because of the way Eric reacted to it. He was all like stank face in the corner. In that moment, she's questioning herself like, oh, have I done or said the wrong thing? And I'm just like, why are you still there? Leave. By the way, I went into this book not knowing a thing about what it was about at all. I got the picture pretty quickly. One thing that I did touch on before is that this guy is an artist, right? And Jenny bears a striking resemblance to his dead mum, Caroline. This guy's obsessed. He's obsessed with his mum, right? Completely obsessed. The house is exactly the way it was when she died, and she died on his 10th birthday, and this guy's like 30 now, I think, 30 odd. So it's been like 25 years, and the house looks the same. And she's trying to rearrange it to make herself feel more at home, and ultimately he's like, change back. She's not allowed to make the home her own, and she's cut off from her friends and family back home. And even in this new neighborhood, right, there was an event that happened. She found out about it after the fact when one of her neighbors was saying like, oh, you feeling better or whatever, and she was like, what do you mean? And the lady's like, yeah, Eric said that you weren't well or whatever, and that's why you missed the dinner or the party or whatever. And she was like, oh, I swear. News to her. This is all over the place, but this book just had me feeling all over the place. Back to the thing about his mum and her looking super similar. He gave her his mum's nightgown on the night that they consummated their marriage and was like, you need to wear this. And I'm just like, sis.
Run.
My sister's about to ruin this video. Enter! Yeah, so what was I saying? How can your new husband give you his dead mum's nightie on the night that you're consummating the marriage and you're just like, sure? I mean, she did feel a bit whatever, but she still did it. So her ex-husband, by the way, like, whilst all this madness is happening, he's been trying to say, he's in and out, but when he's around, he's been trying to get across that her husband's not right, and she's just not having it, like, stop calling us, leave us alone or whatever. And then one night it transpires that he came up to try and talk to her or whatever, but her husband, her current husband, gets to him, kills him, and drives his car off a cliff or whatever. But this whole time as well, he's been trying to make it seem that Jenny's losing her marbles. One of the things that happens is that he kills her husband and makes it look like Jenny was in the car with him. He puts his coat in there with her, with Kevin. All sorts of shenanigans and hijinks are happening, and he's trying to make her seem like she's mad. Like, this guy's running around dressed up as his dead mum, and ultimately it transpires that this guy killed his mum because she was gonna run away and he couldn't have that. He killed her. So Jenny also gets pregnant, and the baby isn't well. It looked like the baby was getting better, but when it looked like the baby was gonna die, he basically told the nurses or whoever names the kid or does the birth certificates, he told them to put down Kevin. So he named the baby after his wife's dead ex-husband, and he also assumed that the baby wasn't his for some reason. Yeah, all of that happened, and then this guy killed the baby as well. He smothered the baby. It's all just hectic. Like, if you can't tell, the book is just so hectic. Even though it's all over the place and just a madness, I still gave it like three stars, I think. Yeah, it was a lot. The other book that I read by Mary Higgins Clark was called Plumbing for Willie, which is about these two lottery winners, the husband and wife. And Willie gets kidnapped and Elvira needs to get him back, basically. That's basically it, you know, like how she goes about trying to get the money, trying to pay the ransom, trying to get him from the inside because he's being held in a motel. I mean, it's a really short book, and that's the gist of it, really. Plumbing for Willie was actually a surprising read for me because I actually really did enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars. That was an audiobook as well, as was the previous Mary Higgins Clark book. And then I actually read quite a few of MC Beaton's Agatha Raisin books. I listened to the BBC Radio 4 adaptations of those. They were 2 books in one. I listened to all of the adaptations that they had, and let me tell you, they were definitely the most surprising reads of 2019 for me. I thoroughly enjoyed them. All the books had a full cast, and the woman who narrated Agatha, top notch. I thought she was jokes. She really brought Agatha to life. I loved that she was sarcastic and witty and like her deadpan humour. Brilliant. Loved it. There's actually a TV adaptation as well. It was on Sky One. Agatha Raisin basically is about this woman who works in PR, who chucks it all in and moves to the countryside, and there's just a crazy amount of murders happening, and she can't help but get involved and try and solve things, and hijinks happen and so on and so forth. Great books. Really enjoyed the adaptations, and I would definitely recommend them if you're into, like, I guess crime fiction. I thought they were really, really good, and I literally gave all but one of them 5 stars. The last 3 books that I read, I actually do have the physical copies of. I'll show these 2 together because they're by the same author. I read Little Leaders, Bold Women in Black History by Vashti Harrison, and also Little Leaders, Visionary Women Around the World by Vashti Harrison. Both of these 2 books. They're both kids' books, obviously, and they're picture books. This one features women of all races, but this one is obviously dedicated to black women, and each page has information on a different notable black woman in history. There's Ella Fitzgerald. There's loads of black women in here. Some I've never even heard of. These are the books I wish I had as a child. I think it's so amazing that these books exist. I'd recommend them to anyone with kids or just anyone in general who's interested in bite-sized knowledge on the amazing women in these books. Both of these books are amazing, and as I said, wish I had them in my childhood. It's really something seeing yourself represented in books like this. Books like these let kids know what's possible. Books like these are important because they show black faces in, I don't want to rhyme, but in loads of different places, you know? We can do and be anything, and I think it's important to drive that message home as early as possible. Would highly recommend. The final book that I want to talk about is Queenie by Carty-Williams. So how can I sum up Queenie? Queenie is our main character. She's a black woman who has Caribbean roots. She's currently taking a break from her relationship with her long-term boyfriend Tom, who is a white man. She's also like navigating her family, I guess, who she feels like don't really listen to her. At work, she's having some issues. She works at a newspaper and she feels like her boss doesn't really see her. The book basically chronicles what happens after she breaks up with her boyfriend. I wanted to love this book so badly. I'd actually heard nothing about this book. I just came across it one day in Waterstones, and obviously the cover drew me in because it's a black woman with box braids and hoop earrings. Like, it drew me in. This was the most disappointing read of 2019 for me, and that sucks. It really sucks. I honestly felt so let down by this book. I did not like it. I know characters can be annoying and you don't have to necessarily like a character to enjoy a book, but I just really felt like Queenie was all over the place, and I know that that was the point of the book. Like, she's navigating a lot in her life right now. I didn't get a lot of her decisions, really. Her friendship group as well. Not so much a friendship group, but specifically one character, Cassandra. Complete cow. She should not have been friends with her. She was the worst. The worst, honestly. There's a point where Cassandra, I don't really consider this a spoiler, but if you don't want to hear it, just skip ahead. There's a specific point where Cassandra is telling Queenie that she's moving in with her boyfriend Guy, and it's that moment that really shows how much of a cow Cassandra is. She's just an idiot. Like, she's not real, but she really is just an idiot, right? Cassandra is still blaming Queenie for the fact that her boyfriend repeatedly cheated on her with Queenie, even though his stupid self was the one that knew he was in a relationship. I cannot. Queenie didn't know who he was. Cassandra had said that she had a boyfriend, but Queenie hadn't met him. She didn't know this guy. She didn't know his name. She knew nothing about him. And she'd been hooking up with this guy, and it turns out that, you know, one and the same. But she's mad at Queenie. I can't make it make sense. I don't understand why Queenie was trying so hard to hold on to Cassandra, because she sucks. You know, she really just is the worst kind of person. Cassandra is completely delusional, and yet somehow has the nerve to call Queenie damaged goods. For a good chunk of the book, Cassandra masquerades as someone who cares about Queenie and calls her best friend, but then turns around and calls her damaged goods. If one of my best friends turned around and called me damaged goods, it's curtains. Some of the stuff that Cassandra comes out with is so below the belt, it's actually maddening. Included but not limited to when she tells Queenie that her ex-boyfriend of 3 years was too good for her, and no wonder he escaped when he did. Queenie should have walked out on their friendship then and there and just wished Cassandra luck moving to New Hampshire or Hampshire or wherever it was with the guy that cheated on her from the jump. Like I said, Cassandra's delusional. One thing I did like about the book was how mental health in the black community and how it's not really talked about was addressed. Another good thing about the book was that even though I didn't particularly enjoy it, it still somehow managed to be a quick read. Parts of it are told through texts and emails, which no doubt contributed to how quickly you can read it. One character that I did like was Queenie's granddad. He wasn't in it that much, and when he was in it, he didn't talk a lot, but there was one speech towards the end of the book that he made. It drew me in. I really liked that speech. One thing, right, that I just really couldn't understand was how Queenie was, as she's a black woman, right? She only dated white guys, and there's a point in the book where they kind of touch on why, but it's not really explained. Like, she says that she's afraid of black men, and I feel like that comment was just dropped and never really addressed. That's a heavy statement. That's a loaded statement, right? I feel like the author really didn't do well with that at all, because how can you drop a statement like that and then just move on? That needs unpacking, you know? Because she basically is repeatedly used and abused by these white guys, and she just continues to go back to them. I really did not enjoy reading that at all, because Like, literally, she's used and abused by these white guys, and she just continues to go back. It really bugged me, man, just to see her in that state. Like, she even goes to a clinic at one point, and they think she's a victim of abuse, like, with the shape that she's in. Maybe if it had been done differently or explained better or whatever. All I really saw was this black woman who allowed herself to be treated any kind of way by these white guys, and it was just... it wasn't it. It really wasn't it. But yeah, that's the end of my reading wrap up. Those are all the books I read in December. 20 books, not bad. We'll see what 2020 has in store for me reading wise. My voice is hella raspy. I've been filming this video for too long, so thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please remember to like, comment and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. There'll be a button for you to do so somewhere around here, and when you're done doing that, check out some of the other content on the screen, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks again for watching. Bye. Quest, return magic to the kingdom. To the what? They were not joking when they said, what did they say?